God created the world and created man in his own image, giving him dominion over the entire creation. And in so doing, he said he made man in his creative image. Can we measure the creativity of man? Do we have any idea how beyond our normal capacities man is capable of performance? We're going to learn this afternoon. And we're going to learn that we are the last of the decaying line so far. We're not the best that ever was. We genetically produce, during fetal development, 200 billion brain cells. But in the third trimester, because of lack of oxygen, we lose 100 billion new brain cells. So we end up with 100 billion brain cells. With those, we're doing pretty well. Everyone in this audience with a proper training has the ability to measure the distance to the farthest star, weigh the mass of the universe, and interpret the signals from every direction. You have that ability if you had the proper training. You're very intelligent. But suppose you had all 200 billion brain cells. There is a phenomenon called the Savant syndrome, which introduces us to just a measure of the potential. And what made the difference in the pre-flood world and the difference today? We'll save that for the conclusion. But I'd like for you to meet one of our very fine consultants identifying with special direct biblical scientific creation. Would you welcome Kristen Adolphi?
All right, it's always a pleasure to be able to present this because it's one of my very great passions. Of everything that we study, this is by far my favorite. Lost World Museum is what John and I are doing, so if you weren't here earlier, this is mostly an online presence at this point, but we're hoping to have a physical location at some point. But this lecture is one of 52 in a sweep through history from a biblical standpoint. We have a number of them on the pre-flood world, and this is one of them because my desire was to find out what can you know about the pre-flood world. I mean, just some fossils, is that it? I mean, is that all there? But the more I looked into it, the more I realized there's a lot you can piece together of the pre-flood world, and particularly humans. So this is number 6, like I said, humans smart and beautiful. At this point, I would have already explained about how tall and looked through the different cultures and the different time periods to see how tall they were and strong, and now we're looking at smart. So the question that we encourage people to try to answer is it apes, aliens, or Adam? And we trademarked this. This is just a fun way of getting the average secular person to investigate, what do you think? It's got to boil down ultimately to those three, basically. So I've discovered through the years that even Christians, a lot of them just haven't seemed to have thought through. When the Bible says in Genesis 1:26, let us make man in our image according to our likeness, and behold, it was very good. What does very good mean? That's a really fun topic, and you'll have definitely a different perspective on that when we're done. So how smart exactly were we? Well, the first clue I'm going to give you is Jedediah Buxton. He was probably an autistic savant. They didn't call him that, but he was obsessed with numbers and counting steps of people and dances at dances, and he would count words at plays. So he was very obsessive with stuff like that. He couldn't write, born 1707, but he was tested by the Royal Society in 1754, and he was able to calculate up to 39 numbers. So Again, I think that's fascinating, but I'm a terrible skeptic. You've got to really prove things to me because I don't, there's so much fraud and nonsense out there. I just don't trust anything. So, as interesting as that was, I thought, let me see what else we can find. Thomas Fuller, born in 1710 and brought to America as a slave. He was known all over the eastern seaboard, and when he was 70 years old, William Hartshorne and Samuel Coates of Pennsylvania sent for him. They wanted to satisfy their curiosity and see whether this was legit, what they'd always heard about this guy. So they asked how many seconds in a year and a half, and he answered correctly in about 2 minutes. And he said 47,336,400. Then he was asked how many seconds a man has lived that is 70 years, 70 days, and 17 hours old. And he answered correctly in a minute and a half, 2,210,500,800. And one of the guys thought they had him because they'd figured it out ahead of time, and they said, "Oh, you're wrong, you're wrong." And he said, "Nope, you forgot the leap years." So, yep, he was correct.